David Seymour is the worst human. It's a nightly reminder that just comes in, Bomber. We just keep getting reminded of that.
Were you aware of that, Bomber? No,
That is
I'm not sure. Does that happen on your show?
I've heard that David Seymour was the worst human. Yeah, I get daily reminders.
Oh, okay. So it's getting around.
What a thing. Yeah, getting around. Yeah. Not a secret.
This might be a bit of a harsh segue, but speaking of worst human beings, let's have a chat about Damien Grant, eh? He's a mate of yours and stuff, and I'm treading gently. I know we can all have different friends in different areas, but we get asked about this in the chat a lot, Bomber. And just for people to know, because I'm polite, I wanted to check it was okay to talk about it, and Bomber said, yep, we can talk about this. Yeah, specifically David Farrier, and I'll bring it up, put out a tweet which we showed yesterday that says, fuck stuff for employing this garbage human being. Now, I'm not about cancelling people or cancel culture, but it'll be interesting to get your take on this. Damien put out a tweet, I guess it was yesterday or the day before. Apparently 33,000 people have died in the Gaza war, about 135 a day. An IDF mistake kills 40 civilians. It's a massive outrage, but if we believe the media, this level of death happens 3 times a day. Perhaps the 33,000 figure is a lie. And since that, I've noticed that he now is no longer on Twitter.
So I wonder why.
Damien has exited Twitter. Again, I'm not going to pass comment. Some people are celebrating that. Good thing, bad thing, I don't know. But we often get asked about, having Damien on the show. Oh, sorry, I forgot the introduction. Chewy, do you want the introduction? I'm talking about that guy. This is what we do. Sorry, Bomber. That guy, Damien Grant. What is he known for?
Once, twice, a convicted fraudster.
That's the guy. Okay, that's
did so well. We went back for another go.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to throw you the ball, Bomber. I mean, I'm not suggesting you have to go anywhere you don't want to go, but people always ask us, and when we read those things out, they've watched you, and so what are your thoughts, if any?
My thoughts are that this sort of constant game by Israeli apologists and those who want to justify Israel's terrible ethnic cleansing war crime.
Genocide?
I think that this game of constantly minimizing, I think he's 1 billion% wrong. I just think he's absolutely wrong about this. And he and I argue off air all the time, like a cat and dog. The numbers I think that we should be skeptical of that 33,000, because I think it's higher than that. I think it's close to 35,000 at the moment. But the only reason we should be skeptical of them is because they don't include the 10,000 dead who are buried in the rubble, who they haven't pulled out of the rubble yet.
Officially missing.
Actually, officially, because they can't. Because Israeli snipers keep shooting them when they try to, so they haven't been able to dig those 10,000. Those are just the bodies they've got. So there's a further 10,000 lives that could be added to that casualty list. So we're now talking of close to 50,000 dead. Now, I think this constant attempt to delegitimize the numbers. Oh, well, Hamas are providing the numbers and you can't trust Hamas because they committed this terrible crime on October the 7th. Most international AIDS groups, most international observers take those Hamas numbers at face value. They are connected to hospitals. They have an enormous amount of mana and organizations that actually have a certain level of respect internationally. So I don't for 1 second think that those numbers are undercooked. Overcooked. I think they're undercooked, if anything, especially when you take in the 10,000. So he's absolutely wrong. He's just wrong about that. And I think that this constant attempt to try and minimize the number, I just think it's as pathetic as the constant debate over the semantics of the word genocide. As if ethnic cleansing war crime is a better option, right? Oh, it's not genocide, but it is an ethnic cleansing war crime. Well, yes, it is neither. I think that the Israelis and Israeli apologists and Israeli defenders had believed and had become so accustomed to a superiority given to them by the military aid that America dumps on them, billions of dollars a year. They thought that they had such high-tech protections that they felt the occupation, brutal as it was giving them a false peace, and all of that shattered. And it's sad watching someone who I have a lot of respect for just so absolutely wrong on this issue. But we also live in a liberal progressive democracy, and he's allowed to be wrong. It's okay. He's wrong. I think he's wrong. I argue with him that he's wrong. I have that debate with him all the time. But he's allowed to be wrong in a liberal progressive democracy. And, people can not like him. People can not want to follow him. But I just think I think it's all semantics. I think that it doesn't do a goddamn thing in terms of being able to pull back on the carnage. And I really think that the pressure and focus needs to be going on our government to demand that we expel the Israeli ambassador if Netanyahu invades Rafah beyond what he's done right now. I think our red line has to be a hell of a lot more ethical than America's red line.
Yeah.
My morning started the other day opening up Instagram of all things and seeing footage of a father lifting up the headless corpse of his baby. And then I saw Damien Grant questioning the numbers and repeating the IDF lie that it's a mistake that they slung several 2,000-pound bombs into a tent refugee camp where they told people they would be safe, and it's a mistake. I think if I was in your position, Bomber, I'd be holding back from jumping over the fucking desk to get him at him after that. Are we going to see that on the working group? It's like we're past words now. It's just bare knuckle boxing tonight. Sorry, guys, it's pay-per-view.
Anything can happen, but I think it's really important that we have friendships outside our direct bubbles, and I think that we have to work at those friendships harder, because you're right. There are times I'm just going, Damien. I cannot disagree with you anymore. But he'll disagree with me on things.
Okay.
And we've always tried to find a way to keep a friendship there, because I think that's important. And while I disagree vehemently with his position on Israel, and I think he's hopelessly compromised, as many apologists and as many defenders of Israel are hopelessly compromised, because they had become lulled into a false sense of belief and security that the brutal occupation of the Palestinian people was going to be tolerated, and there wasn't ever going to be a feedback or a blowback or a backlash to it. And I think that reality, they're having to come to terms with the fact that their occupation has been quite awful and quite terrible. And I just think the disproportionate use of force at this point is one of the great moral horrors of our time. And I think that we've got to lean on our government harder to make a clear call about what we as New Zealanders stand for.
Hey, just one more question about the Damien thing, and then we can wrap up. Do you think, because us radio guys, we go into the logistics of things, do you think that your operating as the host of the show hinders you a little bit in pushing back there and then? Because it sounds like you push back. When I'm watching, I see Damien, like I can think of one where he basically started the show by calling John Minto an anti-Semite and chastising you for platforming him. So he actually took a really aggressive stance at you, and you were like, "Oh, we can get into this if you like." And just because the host has to move the show on, do you think that there's a part of you which is almost hindered from giving him what you might give him off air because you have to control the flow of the show as well?
Oh, look, I mean, you guys know better than most in New Zealand, because you do so much live broadcasting, that when it's in the moment. I mean, look, he and I have had fights on air about things in the past, and our tones of voices change, and it becomes like everyone's a bit like, "Oh shit, you guys are having a fight. You're actually having a fight, aren't you?" So you don't want to make it uncomfortable for the audience, because they're tuning in. They're going, "Are they going to beat each other up now? What's going?" It's like the parents of two divorced parents are yelling at each other. I don't think we want to do that. And we work not to allow it to get to that point. but we're both pretty passionate, and I'm sure there'll be one episode where we just go off against each other. And keep tuning in for that, because
we will
sooner or later.
That'll be highly rated.
I don't want to put you in that position, Bomber. So, look, at some point in the future, date to be determined, I'll just come out of the back with a steel chair, just off the top row. BHN sends its regards.
And the entire studio goes dark, and then it comes back, and you're like in a full Sting makeup with a.
Hey guys, it's time. It's time for us. It is time for us to wrap. But either of you want to leave with anything? Because unlike we never fight that. We had like the mildest of disagreement last Thursday, and the chat started worrying about
Tension.
the two BHN daddies disagreeing with something. It was like we kissed and made up afterwards. Literally, it was fantastic.